On the flip side, if you're the Republican Congress or one of these candidates that's running for president, what is it that, I mean, do you want to, I mean, I was giving a speech the other night and I said to folks, they were all fretting and hand wringing. And I said, how much more can you get? I mean, literally, to your point, you walk down the street, prices are higher. You go into the supermarket. Our foreign policy is a disaster. The guy on tape can't walk down a flight of stairs. I mean, at some point, this is a massive gift. But what would you say from an economic messaging standpoint Republicans should be focused on? Like, here are the one or two things. Don't say anything more, just these two things.
I'd say number one, but that's a really good question. I want to be thoughtful about this. I'm glad that this isn't that you've got 5 minutes and the interview's over type of segment. But I think they say, look, America, we can get back to where we were.
Right.
We can get back to 2019 if we cut taxes, reduce regulation, and increase domestic energy production. We need to seal the border, and we need to do something about crime in our major cities. But if we can keep taxes where they are or reduce them, we can reduce regulation, and we can begin producing oil at the levels we were producing them at. Your life's going to be better. Your retirement will be better. The lives of your children will be better. And we can make this the country that it once was before the Biden presidency.
So the President Trump next week is going out to Michigan to give this speech in front of these UAW workers. And it's interesting because traditionally Republicans would never, I don't think, really be flocking to a union, especially auto workers. I sort of am interested in your take because it seems to me as though President Biden has really blown it. A guy who calls himself Union Joe, he can't get the auto workers, which is an unbelievably traditional Democratic base, to get behind him. What should Trump's message be?
Well, Trump actually, he's right on message. The message is electric vehicles are killing the American automobile industry. They're bad for consumers. They're bad for auto workers. And they're going to destroy the UAW. And let me tell you why that's true. This is one of those unintended consequences of this green energy electric vehicle transition. There's a lot of unintended consequences. We didn't know we were going to be used forced labor and child labor to dig up the minerals. We didn't know that there'd be all these environmental problems with digging up the minerals and with disposing of the batteries. We didn't know that it would cripple our electric grid if everybody went with electric cars. I mean, there are all these unintended consequences when the government mandates something and doesn't rely on the free market and consumer demand to drive the economy. When consumers drive the economy, we end up in a good spot.
Yeah.
When the government mandates it, we end up being Cuba, Venezuela, the former Soviet, all of these socialist countries where that just doesn't work. One of the unintended consequences of what Biden's doing with electronic vehicles is he's going to wipe out the gas-powered vehicle industry. They're Ford, Chevy, Ford, General Motors, Stellantis, which owns Chrysler, are all moving heavily towards these electronic vehicles, and they take 40% fewer employees to make. So you have 40% fewer people on the manufacturing line because they're easier to make. It's easier to make these vehicles. There was a report out within the last couple of days from the America First Policy Institute that said that the car manufacturing industry would lose 117,000 jobs because of Biden's push for these electronic vehicles. Well, most of those are going to be gas-powered vehicle jobs, and they're all going to be they're mostly going to be union jobs lost in union states, because the money from this green energy money that's going to electronic vehicles isn't only going to wipe out jobs, but the money's going to right-to-work states that aren't unionized, because the people that are building these cars, they don't want to build them in the union states because it's too expensive. Labor's too expensive. So the money's going and the jobs are going to right-to-work non-union states. And the jobs that are being lost are union jobs. So when Fain is out there and he says, well, we're going to fight our number one enemy, these terrible companies that hate our workers, and and they demand a 40% increase in wages. Well, Ford, Jim Foley at Ford came in and said, well, you know what? How about 20%? Well, that's not exactly a miserly increase. I think most people would be very happy with 20%, but it's certainly an indication of good faith, if not a generous beginning position in these negotiations. So their enemy isn't these car companies. These car companies want their employees to be happy. They want to be profitable, but they want employees to be happy because your employees are your most valuable asset. They'll go work somewhere else if
Right.
they're not happy. So they want them to be. The danger here is the Biden administration. The Biden administration is killing union jobs, and it's sending money to non-union states, these right-to-work states. So if the union would wake up and see that, I think they could actually make some progress in this area.
Don't you think it's the union? Like, I agree with you. I think the funny thing is Biden keeps talking about he hopes that there's a deal. A deal helps them in the short term. They can give them a 40% increase. They can give them a 50% increase for all I care. But at the end of the day, if you switch everything over to electric, you're going to get a 0% increase because your job's going to go away. And the nice thing is that Trump is saying, regardless of the percent increase you get, I'm trying to save your industry. Like, you won't have a job if Biden's here. So the percentage you get as an increase doesn't matter if you don't have a job. I'm actually trying to save your industry.
Yeah. So you're right. If you don't have a job, it doesn't make any difference if the people who do have jobs are making whether 20 or 40% more because you don't have a job.
Right.
But I think the interesting thing in all of this is not only the fact that people are going to lose jobs, but the fact that the jobs you're creating with electronic vehicles are not union jobs.
Right.
So the people you need to be upset with aren't the people that are trying to employ you.
But do you think, Andy, let me ask you this. I totally get it because the batteries and everything else. Do you think that we should be driving a truck through this message right now? Because I'm sitting here going, wake up, folks. This is the clearest example, if you're a union member, of what the Democratic leadership is supporting and proposing. Republicans could drive a truck through this message and say, hey, guys, all these electronic cars, less workers, parts, not from the U.S. Even if they do build them, the batteries, et cetera, aren't coming from here. So you're screwed.
And they're coming from China.
Yeah.
Like you're sending jobs to China. We're doing this all over again, right? We're going back to the 19th. We're going to send all the jobs to China. What percent of American people do you think want to buy an electric vehicle as their next vehicle, a pure EV?
1 in 10?
8%.
Oh, so it wasn't that off. Yeah.
No. I mean, nobody wants these.
You know, the funny thing is, so this is a true story. I've never driven a Tesla, right? I go, I'm at the rental car place. This is a couple months back, Logan Airport. I pull in and they said, hey, we have a Tesla. And I was like, hey, this is pretty cool. They're like, oh, it's in your bracket, whatever, my rental thing is. And I said, cool. And then I said, well, I got to drive up to New Hampshire. And then from New Hampshire, I got to go to Rhode Island. And how far does it go? And he goes, I don't know.